I can get this recording. There we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Ad Astra coach training. These have been really good. I've enjoyed this process a lot, getting to listen to really good coaches who I think a lot of what they do and have a great deal of respect for them. And I'm learning things. It's been a phenomenal thing, and I'm glad that they're going to be out there for the world to see as we get to train new coaches moving forward. Tonight, we're going to diverge from some of the pretty honestly nationally focused events that we've been focused on for most of this semester so far. And Mrs. Betsy Dutton from Sterling High School is going to spend some time talking with us about acting events, acting as opposed to interp events. And I'm going to let her do a better job than I'm going to do of talking about the difference between those. But if you are a 321A school, you're pretty aware that there is a distinction between acting and interp that the 4, 5, and 6A schools get to do. Betsy is an incredibly successful long-term coach. She's been successful at the state level. In the few years that she chose to play with us at the national level, she played that game pretty well too. She's also a phenomenally good director of shows and just an all-around pretty good person. So I'm pretty happy to have Betsy with us tonight. Betsy, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you do your thing.
Thanks, Russ. And I was really honored to be asked because as you guys are discovering, Kansas has a breadth of people who are good at what they do and also kind and helpful. Marcia and Tina, can you tell me where you're from? Can you guys?
Yeah, Smith Center.
Smith Center. Okay, nice to meet you. And
Hi, I'm from Moscow.
Okay, Moscow. Okay, great. Well, I'm at Sterling, so I'm at a small school, and I know that. And I mean, I know what it's like, is what I'm saying. I've done this for 40 years. This is my 40th year, and I come from an acting background. And when I was hired, I have an English degree too, so I did acting and English, and they said we want a forensics program. And I had not ever been to a forensics contest, so it was new for me. But it can be done. And if you do have any kind of acting or speaking background, you're halfway there because you have acting events and you have speaking events. And tonight's focus is, of course, on the acting events. How long have either of you coached? Tina, how long have you coached?
I've coached off and on for, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
Okay. I have mostly now I have a problem with interest and, getting kids. I had a big team at one time and it just slowly dwindled off, and so the kids don't know what's going on, and so it's hard to build it back up.
Sure. And Marcia, how long have you coached?
22 years.
Good for you. Okay. So you're going to know a lot of the same things I am doing tonight, but I think there are some tips, but also know that I don't consider myself an expert. I think what Russ and Mike have set up here with this is very good because it is a shared endeavor. And I think you'll find, Kansas coaches are willing to share material. I am certainly, because I think material is half the is half the battle. And I will have a thing at the end that I can share some material with you. So that said, like I said, 40 years acting background. I've learned to do the other. I've learned to do debate too, but my love is probably theater. So I'll share my screen now and we'll start. Okay, and we'll just go with this. Of course, I'm Betsy Dutton from Sterling High School, and let's start with duet acting tonight. I have some tips here, and you can please ask questions if you don't understand what I'm saying. On duet acting, you need to pick a piece that shows off the range of both students. Sometimes it's tempting to have a piece that shows off one student and the other person is like a prop, but I don't think that works very well in the long run. I mean, there's things on the ballot that say they both should be involved and they both should have focus. So I think that's probably the way to go. And pick a piece that's clear during a 10-minute presentation. I've had some people who love material, but the cutting itself doesn't really show us what the story is. So you either have to show that in your introduction with exposition, or you have to somehow have a cutting that actually tells a story that 10 minutes allows. Use a teaser for an intro if that will pique interest. I have a tendency to do that, and either I pick something climactic or I pick something that is going to pique interest, and I encourage creativity in the intros that follow. I'm going to show you little clips tonight of things that we've done. They're 10-minute pieces, and we don't have to look at all 10 minutes, but you'll see some of that in action. You're given a table and 2 chairs if you do an acting event, and I like to be creative with that. When we did many years ago, almost 20, I think, when we did the complete works of William Shakespeare. I mean, your table, you can't stand on your table, but it could be, you could turn it on its side sometimes, and you can use it to do some different things in different levels. Chairs are so helpful because you can stand, sit, unless they're roller chairs. So you have to go ask somebody for a different chair if they're roller chairs, but there's lots of ways to use your space. And I think good blocking contains synchronization, particularly, and Duo and Terp is huge on synchronization, but I think good blocking does too, particularly if you're doing comedy. And I'm a theater concept in blocking is to do levels. In other words, have someone on the floor at some point, have someone on a chair at some point, have someone standing, utilize, vertically and horizontally, use the whole playing space if you can. Now, if you're in a room that someone sits on the floor, they can't be seen, that's not a good idea. You may have to adapt, but I try to do picturesque blocking when I do blocking. To look at each other or not look, this is where Russ said I would talk about this. If you do Duo and Terp, of course, they cannot look at each other. They cannot touch each other. My bias is toward acting, simply A, because we do it, but B, because I come from that background. And I think the sincerity that, you can get from touching and looking, is effective. And Terp is not designed that way. So if you were to design a piece to go both ways, you have to know those differences. What plays well at 3-2-1? Well, both serious and comic work, but the edge often goes to comedy at that level. We did have a duet last year, and I've had duets that are serious that win if they're very moving and that kind of thing. But usually, honestly, comic synchronization, particularly at 2 and 1A, really carries the day. We are 3A some of the time, and we are 2A some of the time, and that's been my experience. My strategy, though, is to do one of both at least. I mean, I have a team of about 30. I've had as high as 50, and I always have at least one comic duet and one serious duet that I'm very serious about. And make sure the scenes are active, not just two people talking. That is not very interesting for people. The piece has to have some movement. It has to have something happen. And I always ask these questions when I'm helping students. Does it have an arc? Does it build? Does it have a true beginning and an end? Because you can't ask, I mean, our judges are volunteers, and you can't ask them just to jump into something that they don't have any context for. So you have to go in that direction. Tina, Marcia, any questions on anything I've said so far?
Nope, just fine.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, we're going to take a look at one of my duets from last year. And I get a lot of my scripts for comic things from Play Scripts Incorporated. That's been around for 15 years, 12 years, something like that. What I like about their scripts is, first of all, they're not real copyright heavy. They're not particular about things. They're pretty nice about letting you use anything, but also you have Don Zelitis, you have Ian McWethy, you have Ed Monk, you have several people who write very well for high schoolers, and their pieces are really fun, and they can showcase two people a lot. So this one, you'll hear the intro. I hope the tape is okay. I mean, it's okay on my screen, but I hope it's okay for you guys. You'll see in this some of the things that I'm talking about in terms of levels, a clever intro, and characterization that shows both characters having range. And these guys definitely did. This is, of course, from last year.
You should show up at 7. No, 7:15. I need more time on my hair. And can my corsage be a white tulip? I know normally people go with red roses, but I think it'll clash with my dress.
Yeah, sure.
And actually, never mind. I know you don't want to talk about next year and college and distance until after prom, and I think you're right. Let's just enjoy prom.
I can't do it.
What?
I can't go to prom with you. I'm going with Jess Hutchinson.
Jess Hutchinson? But how is that possible?
Look, I've been dating the both of you for the past 3 months, and it's not fair to Jess.
Not fair to Jess? But what about me?
Well, I guess if you're gonna get technical about it, it's not fair to you either. But come on, think about Jess. She's so sweet.
Don't say she's sweet. I'm sweet.
You're okay. I mean, you're mostly nice, but Jess is like the sweetest. Plus, she's also funny, smells amazing, and has the face of an angel.
But what about my face? And what about my smell?
You smell like okay laundry detergent. Your face is fine, but it's not an angel face. Katie, seriously, really study Jess's face next time you get a good look at her. You will feel blessed.
Get away from me, Billy. Seriously, I don't ever want to see you again. Relationships are always hard.
Well, not necessarily.
Throughout the centuries, we've seen some pretty bad breakups due to relationships, whether you're cavemen in 2014 BC or a modern day romance gone wrong.
Okay, but personally, I think
One second. The 9 worst breakups of all time.
by Ian McLevy.
Oh gosh, that was horrible. That was the worst breakup ever.
Who said that?
Wait,
Who said it?
who are you?
Who just said they had the worst breakup ever?
I did.
Well, moving on. I work for a nonprofit company called Relationships for a Better Tomorrow. We specialize in helping young people like yourselves maximize your potential by showing you just how trivial and undramatic your relationships and subsequent breakups really are.
Hey, it wasn't meaningless. I loved him.
Oh, nonsense. You only dated him for 3 months.
So what? I can't tell that I love someone in 3 months?
Moving on. Katie, I am here to help you. And after the next 10 minutes, you'll realize that your breakup wasn't all that bad. Because, Katie, I'm about to show you some of the 9 worst breakups of all time. 2014 BC. In what is now St. Louis, a caveman and a cave woman, Ug and Ra, enact the first and still one of the worst breakups of all time. Umbakata, umalakasa. Hi, sweetie. Sorry, I am late. I was killing a mammoth and lost track of time.
Amasuka-tuka. No problem. I entertained myself by staring directly at the sun.
Umpamala, umasaka. You said you wanted to talk?
So I think we should break up.
Huh?
Sorry.
Marsakala, umasaka, ugataka. I guess there's only one thing left for me to do. And see. This went on for like 2 hours before Oog was eventually eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. June 24th, 1863. At the height of the Civil War, a U.S. soldier and a sweetheart recording their letters. One of the worst breakups in U.S. history.
My dearest Elijah, it had been so long since your last letter, I had begun to fear the worst. 6 months was the longest stretch from not hearing from you, and it was almost unbearable. Just know that I wait here, alone, longing for the time when I can once again clasp your hand in mine. Your one true love, Jessica Elmira Smith.
Dearest Jessica, it is remarkable indeed that somehow I feel more smothered by you in Gettysburg than I did back in Harrisburg. Perhaps you should try to exercise a little bit more patience, considering I've written in the most straightforward way I know. I need more space. Elijah.
This is worse than I thought. Clearly you are traumatized. I cannot leave until the frost breaks, but as soon as it does, I will make my way to Gettysburg. Your one true love, Jessica Elmira Smith. Dun, 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 dun.
Dear Jessica, it is with a heavy heart that I regret to inform you that your beau, on July 14th, 1863, has passed away in the siege of Knoxville. It is said he fought bravely, and with his dying breath he proclaimed, I wish I could have seen her. My dearest Jessica, I wish I could have seen her one last time. Your president, Abraham Lincoln.
How stupid do you think I am, Elijah? First of all, presidential letters are not handwritten. They are typed. Second, I'm pretty sure Mr. Lincoln has the ability to write above a fourth grade level. And finally, you misspelled Abraham Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln. This is a new and unforgivable law, Elijah.
At least you're finally giving me space. For a while there, I didn't even think you knew how to read.
I love you.
Isn't history amazing? Even Civil War soldiers can be jerks. Moving on, 2005 Jacksonville, Mississippi, 11:02 p.m. Tyler Admin takes out Julie Tunstall on a romantic walk after an extravagant and expensive dinner.
That was an amazing dinner.
I'm so glad you thought so. I wanted everything about this not to be perfect. Julie, from the very first moment I met you, I knew you were something special. And you were just so beautiful, and I was just amazed that you'd even talk to me.
Oh my, Tyler.
And as the years went on, we got to know each other. And as it turns out, I'm a morning person, and you're a night owl, and I like sports, and you prefer theater.
Okay, that was a weird setup.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I'm just nervous. But what I'm trying to say is, Julie, I know I'm not the most decisive person in the world, but this time I am beyond certain. Will you no longer be my girlfriend?
Yes!
Oh, thank goodness you said yes.
Did you just break up with me?
Yes, I did. 1,000 times yes. And there's no such thing as a countdown that ends at 2. No such thing. Nothing compares to what I've gone through. December 1st, 2008, a wide-eyed 16-year-old goes to meet the boyfriend after getting a vague text message. Hey, thanks for meeting me at rehearsal.
Oh, no problem. Are you gonna be the best Danny Zuko ever?
Hopefully. Rehearsals are going really well, and the director said I am nailing summer nights.
Oh, I cannot wait to see it. I'm gonna come by Friday. Is that okay?
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about.
Oh, okay. What's up?
Look, I don't want to make this any worse than it has to be, so I'm just gonna come out and say it. I want to break up. Sorry.
Okay. Well, can you at least tell me why?
And a 1, and a 2, and a 1, 2, 3, 4. You drive like a crazy person. You smell like a cat. You don't like sports and don't wear makeup. And you're even fat.
Hey, what the?
And that's why. Oh, that's why I'm breaking up with you. Wow.
That really happened to you?
I was so shattered and heartbroken, I never dated again. I dropped out of college. Who knows what I would have done if relationships were better tomorrow? God had hired me.
Look, that was really dramatic and over the top, and well, I guess I really have nothing to complain about.
Oh, good. Well, then my work here is done. Hey, if you end up going stag to the dance and need someone to make out with, I'll totally do it. Just so you don't feel like a loser or anything.
Okay, so I think what that shows a little bit of everything. It has variety. I mean, we dance in it, we sing in it, we use the circles to go from place to place. On the cavemen thing, they actually researched movies with cavemen in it and how they move. So don't ever underestimate how important movement is. A lot of duo and terp movement is pretty synchronized, and their playing field is more limited, but in duet acting, I mean, it isn't limited. So I think that can be a real strength. We did the scene first, of course, and then I think it's important to show your own persona when you do the introduction, just to show, again, some more range. Then coming in and out of scenes, you can do multiple characters if you come in and out of scenes. And then I have a tendency to end with bookends. Like my teaser is going to be from the end of the duet. And then, so you had a start and a finish that kind of worked together there. How about any questions, Tina or Marcia, on that? Nope. Okay, is it, and have you guys gotten on Play Scripts? Do you use Play Scripts Incorporated?
I have, no, this is the first time I've heard of it, so I wrote it down.
Good, and I have a list, at the end with that kind of thing, and also Tina, I'll have my email address at the end, and you can, I can send you some piece ideas too, because I want that.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's move on to, so I think I'm solo humorous next, and here I'm not a purist in terms of acting. I incorporate a lot of interpret things into that. Often the humorous solos that stick out the most have many distinct characters. That's my bias. Now, I don't know what Russ and Mike see at 6A, but at 321A, it's humorous solo has lots of characters still. Russ, is that what you guys are doing?
Lots of characters, lots of sound effects.
Sound effects, and that's on my list too, that sound effects enhance the piece. You saw a little of that in the duet, but that definitely energy too. But I have some caveats with that. So often humor sticks out, many distinct characters. A central figure is good. If you have people and you don't have an anchor to the story, I think it makes it difficult. So I almost always pick something where there's a narrator type telling his or her story, and then the other characters come in and out. I think it's most clear that way. There have been people who've been very successful not doing that, but I think it has a tendency to be clear if you have a central figure. Find out which students have vocal dexterity. I always kind of have tryouts. Now, I have to admit that because I do theater at this school and we do 3 plays a year, I kind of know my actors usually, but you want vocal dexterity in humorous solo, whether that means loud, soft, accents, of stereotypical voices. They need to probably be diverse because you're doing lots of characters. The performer should also have good comic energy that can be expressed in a controlled fashion. We've all seen things that aren't controlled, that the person just goes crazy for 10 minutes and that fatigues the judge. They don't stick with it. So it has to be controlled. And I think the more controlled, the better. Our movement for this event is more like interp, although some schools definitely choose to move around and use the chair. I mean, I've seen good solo acts that do that. We have a tendency not to use that and do pops. And pops are with the feet. I'm going to show you some of this young man that I have doing a piece. And what I was taught with pops, and this is when Russ alluded to, we were in nationals and I really liked being in nationals. I just didn't want to fundraise. But anyway, these people started, they do high status characters. Your narrator usually has their feet straight ahead, and then they do low status characters, but they have some kind of physical emblem movement that they come back to each time, whether that be a facial expression, a posture, both. And you'll see him do this when we look at that. Let's see what else. And yeah, I've said that. So don't forget reactions in comedy. Sometimes people whiz through characters so much that they don't interact. And these characters kind of have to interact with each other because truthfully, a lot of comedy is reaction. Some of the people we find funniest on shows that we see or movies are the reactors to the situation. So I think that's something that's kind of underestimated sometimes by coaches. So they need to react. And don't forget reactions in comedy. A character reacting, even when not saying anything, can be really funny and add a great detail. Don't go so fast moving from character to character that the judge becomes lost. Again, the bottom line with all of this is you're telling a story and they have got to be able to understand what's going on. And I've seen very talented kids just zip through these characters and I had no basis. So that intro is important. And that's why I have a tendency to have a narrator character. I choose scripts that have a narrator and that can add a great deal. Sound effects are fun. I said that at the bottom. And like any piece, you have to have a beginning, an arc. It has to go somewhere. Even though you're doing a lot of characters, it can't just end. That character probably has to go on a journey of some kind and meet a bunch of wackadoodles along the way. How about Tina? I don't know if Marcia's still with us, but how about any questions on anything?
Nope.
Okay, and I
Well,
have
probably, but I can't think of any right now.
okay, and feel free to take notes, you know, anytime. I mean, if you have questions, please, I want to help. And you can email me later if you think of some.
Okay.
I personally think it'll
Hi. Okay, so we're going to see this young man. He's doing Don Zolitis, the election. Again, Tina, Don Zolitis, Ian McWethy, Ed Monk. I mean, there are several people on there who have met, they're prolific, and they have lots of scripts that are very appropriate for this particular event. So this is the election. And again, it's been around for several years. And you're gonna see what the pops are.
And the scandal continues to grow. I just don't see how much longer Skip Chumley can hold on to power. Wait, it looks like he's going to make a statement. I want to apologize to my school. My conduct has been inexcusable. I should not have punched out the mascot during the halftime show. That was wrong. I think we're ridiculous. I love this school. I love it so much, in fact, that when I see a kid dressed as a cougar, not exhibiting the proper amount of school spirit, I put that kid's lights out. Because that is a violation of the conduct policy, effective immediately, I will resign as student body president. I've been told we'll have a re-election in 1 month. Administration will be taking application immediately. And that's when it occurred to me. Pickles are actually cucumbers. And then another thought occurred to me. I, Mark Davenport, should run for student body president. Elections. Can't live without them. Don't really want to live with them. In the following high school, Mark Davenport decides to run for student body president and finds himself in the middle of super PACs, hot competitors, and high-profile endorsements that don't include his amigo. This is The Election by Don Zolitis. Hi, my name is Mark, and I want to be president of Presley High School. Hello, I'd like to apply to be a candidate for student body president. Hi, my name is Mark. I also want to be president. Oh, wow. My name is Chris. I've always wanted to be student body president. Like, I think we should all be studying harder and have more homework and less free time. And maybe the school is too much of a focus on football. So I always think we could eliminate all sports programs. And you know how they were talking about bringing an actual pizza company to run things? Yeah, I think that's a terrible idea. We should all be served organic vegetarian food. Yeah, I think that's gonna appeal to most people. Good plan. Oh, my plan? Destroy pathetic opponents in a landslide. Hey, can I be your campaign manager? What are you doing? Playing video games. Have you seen my opponent, Christy What's-Her-Face? She couldn't win an election inside a paper bag. And that's when I saw it. America. Land of freedom, land of opportunity, or at least it was. Now, I'm not so sure that I even recognize it anymore. But I say America's best days are behind her. I say we'll build a school and build a nation that is still the greatest in the world. I am Christy Martin. Vote me for Presley student body president. That didn't even look like the same person. I know. That chick was hot. I would totally vote for her. She doesn't care about the America stuff. She wants to eliminate football and make us all eat broccoli. Who cares? Now, just question on the debate. And welcome to the first presidential debate. Tonight we'll feature the two candidates for president, Mark Davenport and mysterious newcomer, Christy Martin. All right, let's get ready to rumble. Sorry, I've always wanted to say that. Okay, first question. Yeah, you're super hot. Will you go out with me? How is that appropriate? Okay, I will make this pledge to voters out there. If you vote for me, you can put your name in a hat. And after the election, I will draw one name out of the hat and go on a date with that person. You can't just get people to vote for you because you're hot. And by the way, she wasn't hot like 2 days ago. Why is it that you feel it's necessary to bring a female candidate's looks into this room? Do I stand up here and say, oh wow, Mark, you look skinny and your hair isn't correct and you look about as attractive as roadkill? No, I don't do that because I happen to be extremely good looking. Now I'm suddenly using my looks to get votes. You are using your looks to get votes. I just saw you do it. All the time we have left. Thank you for joining me at the debates. Whoa, you really came off looking like a jerk. It's okay though. We still have 2 weeks to turn this thing around. It'll be all right. It will not be all right. Gary McMaster, professional campaign strategist. I'm your new campaign manager. I'm the campaign manager. No, you're not. You're fired. This is the big leagues now, and Mark needs a grown-up with experience to run the show. This isn't really.
I would like to close this. I think my thing is covered. So, how do I get? Russ, how can I move the thing at the top to close out of him?
I'm not sure what you're seeing.
Let me see if I can move my screen down just a minute. There, okay, we're fine. Oh, are you okay? Am I still there?
You're still here. We don't see your screen now.
Okay, so let me get him down and then let me see if I can get the screen back. There's the screen. Okay, let me, Russ, let me share the screen again. Can I do that? Let's try that again.
You should be able to.
I should, right here. Yeah, here we go, maybe. There we go. Okay, so that was the election and you were just seeing some of it. You don't need to look at 10-minute pieces, but you did see the pops, I hope, and to distinguish, and they always go back to that gesture, the girl with the microphone. Josiah can do anything. He can do any dialect. He can do lots of characters. I think one thing you have to be careful about, like you had a chunky kid there. Some people might be offended by that. So you can't, you have to be aware of who your audience are. There was a real trend for white people to play African Americans. That's probably not a real great thing to do. But anyway, he did well with that piece last year, and Don Zolaitis is the author, and he does a nice job with that. Tina, any questions? Okay, I don't want to grill you. I just want.
Betsy, I know. Do you tend to not? I would expect this to be what I think. I'm predicting in my head. Do you tend not to use a chair in HSA?
Yeah, I don't because I think the focus, thank you, Russ. I think the focus is better. I used to do stand up, sit down, and some people do the walk around and turn around to each other. But I liked when I went to nationals, those were so much clearer than what I was doing. And so I have a tendency not to use a chair in HI. I'll use it in serious solo and I'll use it in duet acting, but not probably there. So.
Is it just because that transition is difficult from the sitting down to the standing up?
Correct.
Between characters.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I think, and that's where your feet come in and they kind of shift for you. And even though your feet aren't doing much, they make it look sharp when you go from character to character. Although
I was just reading a piece today about, I was wondering about that because it was a teacher and students and, different students and one teacher and how would that be handled? Would it be better to sit down or?
And you and I have both seen people walk around and I don't think that's very effective. And I think if they can all look kind of out, just out and then have their posture and their pop, it really makes for a clearer piece. So their movement is curtailed.
I would guess that at least in the HI and DI world, one of the reasons it's easier for us to transition to serious solo when we go to a smaller tournament chair, because those are almost all monologues.
Yeah. And I'm going to talk about that. Whereas I don't think, Tina, that very many people do monologues in Humorous solo occasionally, but most of the time it's the multiple characters.
I will have to say, I tend to look for those, try to find those for my students, because we don't have theater at all. We maybe have a play. We haven't had one for the last couple of years. And so my students are not really comfortable between switching. If I can even get them involved with switching between characters like that. And so, I like them. I like watching them and I like to help my students through them, but I also don't have a background in theater at all.
Right. That's tougher.
I teach math and so,
oh my goodness.
So yeah, I like that, but I tend to try to, and they're very hard to find.
They are
humorous solos that are a monologue.
Well, that's because as Russ said, people are looking for so many, characters, but occasionally you can find something that's basically a monologue, but that person then talks to other people briefly.
Right.
That's sometimes can work too. So yes, I'm just telling you what usually goes to the top is that stuff. But again, if I were a math teacher, I'd feel the same way.
Yeah.
Because I'm a performer, my husband and I run the community theater. I can kind of do some of this for them too, and then they can pick up on it. And I can do dialects, and so you have to play to your strengths. So if your strengths are them finding a comic, energetic monologue, I say go for it.
Yeah, that's what I look for. I know what's going to do better. I've judged. I know that the ones with many characters is probably going to do better, but It is what it is at this point.
I think you could also find some short stories that are told in first person where they have some
Mhm.
dialogue with someone. And I think sometimes those can. I definitely, for serious solo, I have used things from books before. So
Yeah.
that might be something, if you know of an amusing short story that
Yeah,
that they can talk about that. So I hear you. And like I said, if I were
Yeah.
a teacher, I'd feel the same way.
yeah.
So let's go on to serious solo. And again, you need to pick something that has a definite arc, climax, and ending. Most people tell good stories when they do serious solo. I think people are attracted to the storytelling. As Russ said, monologues are fine. There are people who do a lot of different characters, but not really. Usually you have that strong central character and they may have dialogue with someone else, but most of the time you still are focused on that strong central character. You can do a teaser, but many just do an introduction and explain the needed exposition, because obviously you're doing 10 minutes. So you may have backstory that you have to get in to the intro and do that. Multiple characters are fine. Like I said, central figure works best. People that 2A, 1A level look for movement of some kind. So I don't think if I just stood there and did pops like HI or humorous solo, I don't know how successful that would be. They do look for some movement in that. I've just had lots of judges like, where's the movement? But make sure it's motivated, not just pacing around. I mean, that doesn't look good. When people are wrought with tension and they're pacing around, that doesn't look good. Levels are nice if the script calls for it. The thing I'm going to show you has some levels, but don't impose them. I mean, in other words, don't stand on a chair just to stand on a chair or anything like that. Don't use a table if it isn't motivated, but you can use those things. All right, here's my biggest beef is avoid screaming and crying for long periods of time. Some people seem to think that that is the way to win friends and influence people, and it really isn't, because it'll obscure the dialogue, for one thing. You're telling a story, and then compassion fatigue will set in with the judges. I mean, somebody sustaining that kind of behavior for 5 to 10 minutes is just obnoxious after a while. Make sure your highest levels of emotion are special and used infrequently. Again, I would find that one arc. That's what we sit down and do first, is where is the peak of this piece, and go with that. Don't be afraid of pauses. They're nice in serious solo. It makes it real. Don't overdo them. You don't want to pause so much that they're not special, but silence can be very effective. And I think it's important to play through moments. And this is where my theater background comes in handy. But, you know, if something emotional has happened and you have to go on to a transition, play the moment out before you go on to that transition. The kids that you would see in the final round of nationals are very, very good at that. And it's very effective if you can play the silences. And then pick a piece that's good for your student and not beyond something that they can imagine. You know, we know that these are all somber. You can judge this round and come out just like totally drained. They're all somber pieces, but you know, there are some beautiful pieces that are simpler and don't involve screaming, but are still effective and affecting. And I suggest those. But a lot of the scripts written, I mean, particularly packaged for these events, sometimes are kind of screamers or whatever. I'm going to show you my young man who this is from Black and Blue Boys by Dale Orlando Smith. It's about abuse. He also can do an Irish dialect, so that sticks out. And so we chose it because of those two things. And I don't know that I'll show the whole thing, but. And again, these are from last year, of course.
I come from 3 generations of Irish, Scottish, drunken pint glass philosophers whose only function was to get and stay drunk and give their 90 proof of advice while falling off of a pub stool. Then they staggered home, beat their wives and kids, and passed out. Hungover, of course, the next morning, apologetic. The next morning, can't remember anything of the night before. And they're begging for forgiveness, only to do it again. My father, my dad, is of that lineage. In Black and Blue Boys, Broken Men, Dale Orlando Smith focuses on male characters who share a traumatic link, violence, and the cycle of abuse. In the following, Ian, a young boy, recalls on a time when he knew he had to escape his tyrannical Irish father. From Black and Blue Boys, Broken Men by Dale Orlando Smith. There was this one Saturday night. Dad was in the pub from midday to closing. The barman called to say Dad needed looking after and can't make it back himself. It was cold that night. I mean, freeze your bollocks off kind of cold. And I told Mom, I said, Mom, it's cold. I don't want to go. She said, Ian, it's your dad. Mom kept after me, but I did not go to the pub. So we're waiting there for Dad, and we're scared out of our wits, especially me because I didn't go and get him. We hear him before we lay eyes on him. We hear him singing Dead End Street by the Kinks. We look out the window and he can barely stand. A mate of his has walked him home. And as I peer through the curtains, I'm petrified. I know I'm going to get it. So I'm sitting there by the curtains, praying Dad would just pass out when I got inside. I'm listening to that walk, that long, short, unsteady walk. His mate gets him in the flat. Looks down at me and says, "You didn't come for me." That he proceeds to pick me up and slap me about. Mom tries to jump in, but with one hand he slaps her down to the floor. Then throws open the door and drags me outside and holds me out over the stairwell landing. I'm screaming, bloody screaming. And people are starting to come out of their flats now and they're saying, "No, mate, put the child down, mate. Don't." By now, almost everybody has come out of their flats. Some are looking up, others down. Dad is still holding me. He's holding me up, taking it all in. A smile comes over his face. These people have become his audience. And he's holding me up to the crowd now. He's actually holding me up as if I were on display. I'm his dad. Hey, didn't listen to me? Your kids have to listen to you. If you have to give them a kicking, then give them a kicking. Say you're nothing. No, I won't. In Ireland, we knew to mind our parents. We knew. People here in England know nothing of discipline. Nothing. You will mind me and I will make you mind me. Even if I have to kick you all night long, I am the man in my house. He thinks he knows all, but he's stupid. Calling me stupid. These kids were crying, begging their parents to do something, but it's almost as if they were crying for themselves. By now is thinking he's it. All eyes are on him now. He's a star. I finally break down and say, I'm nothing, Dad. Nothing. What was that stupid? Want to make sure I heard you right, stupid. Say it so everyone can hear you. I'm nothing, Dad. Nothing. That's right. Don't ye ever forget that. Dad drops me. He drops me from the second landing stairwell to the first. I come crashing down. Mom rushes over and some neighbors come as well. The other kids and me were screaming. All of his kids were screaming. And I heard one kid tell his dad, "Why didn't you stop that man, Dad? Why?" Shut it. It has nothing to do with us. Then everyone goes back inside. Dad goes to the fridge, gets a lager, drinks it, and passes out in his sitting chair. He sleeps there the whole night. The next morning, Sunday morning, Mom took me to Mass.
Oh, here I go again.
Didn't go because he was too hungover. And when we got back, he took one look at my face. The left side
were swollen. He looked down and closed his eyes. He knew it was the worst beating he'd ever gave me. Mom told him what he'd done. He couldn't remember all of it, or so he said. And then he reaches out to touch me, and I scream.
Okay, here I am again. Sorry. Okay, there we are. Sorry about that. Noah has a very good sense of focus. I have no idea how good the quality of the tape was for you guys, but he maintained his accent well. He can hold pauses well. We did use the chair because it was appropriate for throwing someone off a second story landing, but it doesn't mean that that's what people should do all the time. You saw simplistic turning to the side for the mother, turning to the side for the other little kids, but most of it is him and his story. And any questions on that, Tina? Okay, that's a beautiful script. A lot of it is for African-American kids, but she does have some, it's talking about abuse and breaking the abuse cycle. All right, let's move now to just places, sources to consider. So these are things that I use. Concord Theatricals has now taken over the world, and it has Samuel French and Dramatis Play Surface. That's where a lot of your Broadway plays come from. So their catalogs are good to look through. They have a lot of monologues in them too. And the things that have played off Broadway, New York, and regional theater will be found there. Dramatic Play Publishing has it has some good things too. And it has a tendency to do a lot of things that play community theaters, schools. Big Dog Publishing, if you want to find some humorous solo, that has some funny, silly stuff in it. The Interp Store, Gregory Burns runs the Interp Store, and he, for $24 or $25 or something, what he does, Tina, is he has a book that will have a duet in it. It will have poetry. It will have solos. So it's worth it. And if you get on the Interp Store, you're going to find lots of possibilities, and you can read them ahead of time. Brooklyn Publishers has things that are already cut in duets and solos. Play Scripts Incorporated is what I talked about before. I take a lot of things from there for my humorous stuff. I also have adapted things from novels. I did a Lizzie Borden thing a couple years ago where I adapted it from a novel, and it was effective. It was a first person narration, and she had a little bit of interaction with other people, but it was basically inside her head. And then podcasts. There's an awful lot of good podcasts out there that you could get the transcript to, and they could be a serious solo. There's crime dramas. There's a lot of good things on This American Life, The Moth, that are good stories that could be turned into serious solos too. They're longer usually than what you need, but that kind of thing. So those are ideas I have for that. Russ, do you want to contribute anything about sources?
No, you're covering almost everything. You're right. Concord Theatricals has taken over pretty much the world. Actually, I will say we just did, Pam and I did a session on finding material about 3 weeks ago. She added one that I had never heard of. There's a bookshop in Oregon called Powell's.
Wow,
and they
awesome.
have a big online presence. And I ordered some stuff from them last week. Good. And didn't have to do the hassle of Amazon.
Yeah,
we have to do with school with like tax exempt and all that.
Exactly.
Stuff.
Exactly. So, and the thing is, Tina, I would say that what Russ and I are doing right now, I'm writing down Powell's. I mean, I've done this for 40 years, but I think I'm just constantly looking for material. And I think most people will be very helpful. I mean, there's other Tibetan tree frog is out there. There's other sites that you can find.
Yeah, I bought like all of their stuff like several years ago, bought the whole subscription and downloaded everything. Also Mushroom Cloud Press.
Yes, Mushroom Cloud.
And I guess I have a lifetime membership or something somehow, because they just sent me a whole bunch of new files that I downloaded. And I bought those probably 6 years ago.
And like you said, those come in download. Most things do, not everything does, but those certainly do.
My problem is I just get so overwhelmed. I mean, I read one and I get partway through it and I'm like, this is good. No, let me try another one. And then I'll read another one and I'm like, no, let me try another one. And then it's just so overwhelming.
Yeah,
do you-
I think,
Go ahead.
Tina, the hard part for me is just like, I can't read it all. The kids have to do some reading, and the kids,
Mhm.
it's hard to get them. Sometimes it's hard to get the kids to read.
Yeah, and for sure. And I don't have a class,
Right.
so it's afterwards, and we're very, very small. And you know, my kids that would do this are probably out for sports,
Mhm.
and so I can't get them after school. So I wouldn't mind going before school. I go up early anyway, but they don't really like that. And it's just, you know, even most of the time, I find a piece and I say, here, I think this one would be good for you. I mean, I know my students, I'm like you too. We're very small. So I know my students and I say, oh, I think this one would be good for you. But I wish that they would look through them, but I've got hundreds and it's just overwhelming for me and for them.
Yeah.
You know,
And
I
I'm
did find a new source for some poetry that I think might be good. I found her on TikTok. Is that
Good.
embarrassing?
Good,
But it was
no.
a book. She published a book and she's got some really, really good ones.
What is
So,
it? Let's write it down. What is it?
It's called, hang on, let me get it. Let me get it. I have it.
I would also say that I find that young adult literature is pretty
Yeah.
good for serious solo.
I agree with you. I think it is, and a lot of it's written in first person.
Yeah.
I think so too. I've done that a couple times, most definitely.
Never mind, it's at school. It's something
Okay.
like Play with the Wind or something with the wind. I don't know. She's
Okay.
just, and they're really short ones, so I'd have to put several together.
Sure.
But she performs them on TikTok, so that helps me too, because poetry is, I loved poetry, but I don't always get it.
Yeah.
And so,
No.
so
Yeah.
yeah, I think that is my biggest struggle with forensics in general, is once I get the kids involved, finding pieces.
I think so too. And I think material's huge. And if you'll get my email here in a minute, and I want you to
Okay.
email me and I'll send you some lists and things
Oh,
too.
so you have my email address then?
No, I'll give you
Oh.
mine and then you can email me.
Oh, okay.
And say,
Okay.
I'd like
okay,
the
that'll be good.
list, and I can send you some stuff. And I'm always willing to do that, because when I first started, just finding enough material is overwhelming. You're on the right track by downloading all of that. I'm a voracious reader, but I just read. I read all year long, and I try to pace myself because you're right. If you try to read like all in January, suddenly it's awful. So
Yeah, I read a piece about you in the Hutch paper several years ago.
oh,
They did a piece on you and your forensics team. So that's kind of where I heard about you. And that was one of the things you said, is
Yeah,
that you're
that's
always
true.
reading. And I've read a few too that I think, oh my gosh, that a cutting from this would be really good for a serious solo. I don't know how to do that at all. Like at all.
And
Russ always says, oh yeah, that's easy. No, it's not. Let me teach you about quadratic equations, please.
which is not always easy. No, and I would be glad to help with that,
Yeah.
particularly Tina, if you would send me something in the summer, I could help you and give you some guidelines on
Oh,
that.
okay.
I would be glad to do that. And I've done
Okay.
workshops and camps before, but that kind of thing, I would be glad to help one-on-one, because that was my biggest difficulty when I first started. Most
Yeah.
definitely. And I think,
Just finding pieces in general.
and then learning to
Yeah.
cut. I think that's tricky. And I also think, you said something else earlier. Oh, I didn't have a class for 10 years. And so
Yeah.
I think your system of kind of giving kids stuff to go is good, because they will be motivated by success. And then what Russ says can follow, that they'll start looking themselves. But until that happens, they usually are just
Yeah.
like, what?
Yeah.
So, and I have to make appointments at night still. I mean, because not everybody, I have a class
Yeah.
now, but not everyone takes it. So.
Yeah. And I don't mind doing that. You know, if I have a kid that says, well, can I come in after practice, 6:30 or something, I would go back into town. I only live about 5 miles out. I don't have a problem like that, but it's been several years since I had really a team. And so the kids don't really know what it is. I still have
Right.
kids saying, well, what is forensics? And so when you don't have a student there to tell them about it, it's really, really difficult. So
Russ, what do you do? What do you do to get people involved, or Dawn, or anybody? I mean,
I
Go ahead, Russ.
I recruit like crazy from my speech classes, because I get to do both. we've been at it long enough that I generally recruit. We do a lot of word of mouth recruiting. I maybe am weird. I stand in the hallway. Other teachers avoid that hallway time. I'll stand in the hallway and just watch kids. I'm in the performing arts hallway, and I'll just pick kids out and say, come here.
Yeah.
And you probably get the masses in your math class, but you may not get to see them do things that you would in a speech class or a drama class or whatever.
For sure. I mean, I really, I mean, I feel like I know my kids though, a lot of them. And so I try to recruit them. And there's some that will say, well, what is it? And it's just, it's so hard to explain. And so a few of them I've just said, you know, let's get something you can read, poetry or prose, so they don't have to do a lot of practice. We'll go to a meet so you can see what it's about, and then we can go from there.
I take my kids down to the junior high English classes in the spring, and they perform.
That's a good idea.
They perform, and so then I get kids from that who think, oh, that'd be fun, you know, that this is learning, you know. So that again, you have to have an established program.
Yeah. I do have a group of kids that for it's our MTSS reading. I don't know if you know what MTSS is, but it's just so I have a group of readers, and I actually have the top tier this time. For whatever reason, I had the low tier, but I have them 2 days a week, and I keep saying I'm going to have them just go through my pieces, pick out a piece, practice for 2 days, and then the next 2 days, then we'll perform them and stuff like that. Oh, I'm embarrassed about that. I said, that's why you should do that. That's why I don't like to stand up in front of me. I said, that's why you should do this. You need to learn to stand up in front of people. So anyway,
and baby steps could be they could tape it and you could evaluate it. And
that's a good idea.
And then with success, they might, you know, or getting some feedback from you that's positive, they might then do the next step. So as baby steps, I think a lot of times.
Yeah, I know. I've just got to build it back up. I had many years ago, I had 22 on my team.
Yeah.
And so.
And the classes sometimes go that way too, like all the buddies do it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So my email is on this screen right here, duttonb@usd376.com. And I will send you things. I can certainly be a reference for you. And I'm serious about in the summer. I don't have a lot of time in the actual school year, but in the summer, I would help you with some things.
Yeah, none of us have time during the school year.
Tina, are you at an NSDA school?
And I would say no, because I don't know what that is.
There are just some great resources there about cutting, finding material, just something to think about in the future. It's in the future.
Can you, Don, can you buy those if you aren't NSDA? Can you still buy them?
You can buy the resource package, but I think you still have to be a member school.
Okay.
I would encourage you, even if you don't compete at NSDA Nationals, to invest the $300 for the resource package and a school membership just for a year. There are wonderful study guides, materials for students. There's literally curriculum for speech events and drama events and debate events pre-done for you. There's lectures like the stuff that we're doing. It's worth the investment, and it's an easy pitch to your school district if you need help.
And your kids could view those things on their own time. It doesn't have to be like at a set exact. And if you send me your email, I have a number of lists generated that might help you in terms of male, female cuttings, you know, that kind of thing. Happy to share. I've shared them with Russ and a couple of other people. And then the last thing, because I love this, trust me. The one thing I think we always try and do in drama, whether it's interp or solo, here it's just dramatic interp, is somewhere in that script, find a little piece of humor that helps cut that break for a little bit. And then you can go right on. But that gives it, you talked about, I love your thing about the fatigue. And I think that's what you can feel sometimes. And the final thing is I use a lot of drama bookshop now that it's back open.
Yes.
But you need to know the title. They don't always search a lot. They will look for you, but it's.
No, they're great. They're great. I use drama bookshop too. And Tino, I think what he's saying is so important too, that I think the best pieces aren't just dead drop serious all the time. They do have bits of humor. So that's definitely.
Yeah. Was that a .com drama bookshop? Is that a .com or? Okay.
Lynn Manuel Miranda.
Oh, okay, sure. I actually know who that is.
Yes, you do. Sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a bookshop in New York City and it's wonderful.
Okay.
So anyway, but I am very glad to be a contact, as with these people, I'm sure.
I'm trying to put my email in.
Yeah, Don, I'd like to have your email. I'd take your list.
Absolutely.
Congratulations, I mean, that's a milestone every year.
So, but that,
We just had ours that in January here, 36, and so.
that is all I have tonight.
Very good,
Again,
thank you.
yeah, sure.
I'm gonna end the recording and then if anybody has any additional questions, we can kind of go from there. Thank you so much, Betsy. Thank you. for doing
Sure,
that.
glad to. Thank you for asking me.
Well, I thought I was gonna miss this. I said to Russ, shoot, I forgot it. And he said, it's today. And I said, I didn't forget.